Good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's edition of the Community Brew Live. This is episode 36 of the Community Brew. I cannot believe we have been hanging out 36 different times live on YouTube. Oh my goodness, there's 114 of you watching live on YouTube right now. This is so stinking exciting. So without further ado, I'm going to toss it over to Mr. Bradley, and he's going to introduce our week this morning. Definitely hop over to the comments, though, if you are joining us for the first time on Community Brew Live. We definitely want to talk to you and hang out with you over in the comments on YouTube or on Facebook. It's all you, Mr. Bradley.
Hello, Nelson County, and happy Monday. We're excited to kick off the Community Brew today, really with an overview of the week as we think about the work going on across Nelson County schools. We want to go back to this conversation that we started about 16 months ago with our Pride teams, a conversation that really led us to this work around empowering lives and excavating gifts. And that conversation emerged from this book, Deep Learning, which about 50 community members participated in a book study beginning in January of 2019. And here we are 16, 17 months later, entering into a conversation further as we think about our district purpose of empowering lives and excavating gifts. Today, that conversation will be centered around a quote from Deep Learning. Tomorrow, we'll be looking at what that looks like as we think about the gifts of people in our community and how we connect people across our schools and our community. On Wednesday, we'll be looking at the power of place and the gifts of this place in not only the Nelson County schools, but in our Nelson County community. Thursday, we'll be looking at the power of purpose and excavating a purpose and passion and the gift that comes from that, both as an individual and as a community. And then lastly, we'll end the week with an impossible year in review. We'll be inviting you as community members to participate in that at your local school level. So today's conversation during the brew centers around this quote from page 24 of Deep Learning. And the quote reads, "In our culture, we believe that every child is born with gifts. What will our schools do to uncover and develop the gifts of our children?" That quote was the inspiration for so much of our conversation around purpose in the past year, a conversation that led to the gift links and tying those links together across our community. And this is really the impetus for our week. So the question is, the first question we're going to start with this morning is, where do we see this coming to life in our work? And then we will spend the last 10 to 15 minutes thinking about our crossroads as a community of leaders in embracing a gift mindset across our schools. So there we go. So where do we see this idea coming to life in our work across the Nelson County schools? Have at it, panel.
I'll go first. I'm Shay Lancaster. I teach at Boston School. I teach a 4 and 5 split class. So some ways that I've seen this come to life is in the mornings, we have family meeting times for about 30 minutes where we can gather together and do some teamwork activities, whatever's on their mind at the time. Sometimes they're structured, sometimes it's whatever is on their mind at the time. But what we started was student showcases. So once a week, we would choose a student, or a student would volunteer, and they could choose to present their showcase or their passion. And over the course of time this year, especially during the NTI times, we utilized that to see what they're really about. So I was able to really figure out that some students love things I would never even imagined. Like a student, I know he loved guitars, but he never talked about gardening. And so that was something that he loved to do with his grandpa, was gardening. And sure enough, he had a whole picture. He had a whole slew of crops and whatnot in his backyard. And we didn't know that until he was able to show us during the NTI time from his view from home. So just little things like that, having them show their showcase and show their gifts through that time we were able to really find what those students love to do and kind of pinpoint on that and utilize that. So.
Thanks, Shay.
I can go next. I'm Nikki Anderson. I'm a special education teacher with Cox's Creek Elementary. I feel that our school is really concentrating on empowering our students, especially this past year and going into next year. We would constantly talk about how we could get our kiddos out of their shell, how we could get them more passionate about their learning by giving them more control of that. And it's harder to do. I deal mostly with, kindergarten and second grade students. So giving them a choice is a little more challenging, especially if you're OCD like me and you kind of want to just get everything in order and structured. But we have some amazing primary teachers at Cox's Creek, and they were able to share their passions by giving them categories to choose from. And we had dance, we had cooking, and we just had so many that, these kindergartners and first grade students, they, a light bulb would come on and be like, I love to dance. I love music. So they were able to choose what they wanted to do. And then they would get together and they would practice, and became, one of their favorite parts of the day. And the teachers, they were all in because they could see the excitement of these students, and it was amazing. So I feel like they are going to continue to grow on the passion projects and kind of work it in. Fourth and fifth grade students are trying to gear more towards letting them choose so that they can let us know what excites them and what they're good at. But that's a huge focus for Cox's Creek, is just empowering our students and letting them share themselves with us.
Well, Nikki, I have to share, there's definitely some love happening for you over in the comments on YouTube. Sonia Zelke, she's sending you some Cox's Creek love. Kelsey Berryman said Nikki is a rock star when excavating student gifts. Her relationships with her students are so powerful. And also going back to Shay, you hopped off before I could jump in and share the love with you, sister. But Josh Dewar said Shay's showcases have really helped students not only share their gifts, but really come out of their shell. Their self-esteem, presentation skills, and connections with others have really grown. So really, really cool to kind of see our school community engaging over there on Facebook. No pressure, but I have to tell you, there's like 250 people watching live here between YouTube and Facebook. Yay! Hello to everyone out there. We're so glad you're here.
I also, as we think about two of the things that just came out of that conversation, the relationship with teacher and student is a big piece of this conversation. Their trust for you, really allowing them to share that, is so important.
That's exactly where I was going to go with the conversation, actually. My name's Tyler Mudd. I'm the science and social studies teacher at New Haven. I think it all comes down to building rapport with students. And I think once you get to know the students, you can find out what their interests are, and then you can provide opportunities for those students to showcase that. You can build your experiences based off their interest, and then that provides a perfect opportunity to excavate these gifts. And that's when I'm by no means an expert at this whatsoever, but I have had some experiences. I've had some good luck, and I've had some successes in this field. So it's really cool to see. So that's how I've had it in my limited time.
I'll share something that we're doing at Foster Heights. My name's Abby Payton. I teach 5th grade at Foster Heights. And something that we started doing kind of right before the NTI experiences started is we did student showcases in our Care and Connect, which seemed kind of similar to what some other people have shared. So we got to see the passions and the gifts of students that we don't get to usually see every day. And so it was just cool to see what they think their gifts and passions are and how excited they were to share with groups of students that they get to see in the mornings that necessarily aren't in their classes. So that was really cool to see. Hi, I am Claire West, ag teacher at Nelson County High School, and I want to hop on and say that Nelson County High is doing a lot of the things that Shay had mentioned and Abby had mentioned. We're trying to put that all about me or gift showcase style in our Cardinal Crew system. So I kind of like that that's a theme throughout the district, and maybe it'll become almost like a norm, kind of an expected thing as kids come from elementary into high, if we can continue that on. Second, at Nelson County this year, I loved being able to focus on student gifts. I love this initiative and love. And I just wanted to give an example. I was able to bring it to life this year in my classroom, and I benefited from it, and I know the kids did as well. We were doing a unit about chickens, ag things, and one of the girls was like, I have chickens. I want to bring my stuff. Can I make a PowerPoint? And I just said yes. And I gave her the entire class period, and she taught the best lesson about chickens that I've ever witnessed. She brought feeders. She had photos. She showed us her food. It was so cool. And the kids had questions. It was probably one of my favorite days all year. Just watching her kind of shine and the other kids like see that and feed off of it.
Thank you, Claire, for sharing that. I think what that speaks to as well, oftentimes as educators, we take so much of the onus of knowing on. I know especially early on in my career, I think there's a book called Never Work Harder Than Your Students. Part of that is, never know more than your students too. I think part of our challenges is stepping back and recognizing the diversity of the 150 kids you may serve on a given day. And honoring that through some of the structures and spaces. And agriculture, as an example, for those of you who are part of FFA or agriculture in high school, I'm envious of you. For those of you who are not, I encourage you to look closely at it, because it is such a powerful incubator for empowering lives and giving kids in the ag community, regardless of what job they end up taking on after high school or college. Those kids are so blessed to be a part of that organization because it's truly about empowering them and their voice in the community. So thank you for sharing, Claire.
Hey, Mr. Bradley, did you know that I was parliamentarian when in high school in the FFA?
I did know that. You've mentioned that a few times before.
Well, I just had to bring it up again. I do want to comment really quick, hopping over here to YouTube. Miss Stephanie Smith from Bloomfield left a powerful comment. She said, curiosity is the compass that leads us to our passions. Students are really getting an opportunity to engage themselves, their families, and our community in this process. And then there's lots of FFA love happening in the comments too. So, yay. Who's next?
Brooke, I'll go next. Anna DeWitt from Bloomfield Elementary. I'm sorry, I had some internet issues this morning. Which question are you guys discussing?
We're just talking about the quote where we see this conversation around gifts coming to life.
Okay. Well, I did a cocoa cart, the second grade at Bloomfield Elementary, did a cocoa cart this year. And it was amazing to see how, these gifts started to emerge from students that, I don't think they were even aware that they had during the process, because we allowed them to get into different committees. We studied a lot about marketing and branding. And I had, just to give you a couple of quick examples, I had one student who worked on the design team, and they all collaborated together to come up with a design. And she was a really strong force in kind of helping push that. And, a very shy student, but I saw her really emerge in that process and, start to take a lot of ownership and come out of her shell in that respect. Then I had another student who's, very quiet, as well. But when it came time to, delivering the cocoa to students and faculty, this student, he really surprised me because he had really good communication skills. And I know that really shocked him, I think, as well. So just seeing the students really empowered and kind of learning their own gifts, but also, it helps when those gifts are reinforced and, you have their teachers and their student peers around them who are, patting them on the back and saying, great job. And, you're really good at this. So that was wonderful to see.
And I'm Christy Lynch. I'm the backpack leader at OKH. So we do a lot of really awesome things here. And so with our Care and Connect and our architects and our student leadership, the kids just led a lead rally. One of those were in our NTI days. They did all of it, and they were fantastic. We do our Family Fridays, and our kids are the ones who plan those as well. And we've got coming off of Claire here, we've got an ag teacher. We had 2 ag teachers, and the kids just grew so much this year that we were able to expand our ag program in middle school. So I think that there's a lot of growth that goes on, and where we're able to showcase our kiddos, and they have they just get so excited. And we're building a garden right before NTI, and those kids were just all about it. And they were like, we can do this. No, Mr. Coulter, we know how to measure. And it just gives them such a sense of power to be able to do their thing and to do things that aren't just like, oh, I'm sitting in class at school.
Hi, I'm Nicole Pinkston, Nelson County Early Learning Center. This year we started a group called our Compass Leaders. There were 2 students picked by each teacher throughout the school building. And the project we worked on is we are building an outdoor classroom. So we actually took all of those students, questioned them about what they thought that might be, which was quite interesting, and things they thought they might like to have in an outdoor classroom. Of course, at their age, they took it more as being a playground. So they wanted roller coasters and a swimming pool and a trampoline and things like that. So to show them what actually an outdoor classroom is, we took them on a field trip to 2 different programs in the Louisville area. And I think they were more excited when we got there to see what a real outdoor classroom looked like versus what they thought it looked like. Everything was very natural and hands-on. Balance beams were made from logs, and they had tunnels that they were able to go through, and mulch and rocks and all those things that they could actually use to measure and make things with. And they were really excited about that. So they brought that back to our school, and they were able to share that with their classroom and then decide what in our classroom they wanted, or in our outdoor classroom they wanted to put in. And they that group made the decision that we would put an outdoor kitchen in our classroom. So about that time is when NTI started. So it kind of slowed down a little bit, but they were still able, through us meeting through Google Hangout, to come up with a design of how they thought their classroom or their kitchen should look, and all the things they felt like we should have in it. So they were very excited about that. And it was kind of sad because a lot of the kids were like, we're not even going to get to see this kitchen, because they were 4-year-olds who are moving on to kindergarten. So, but they're very excited about that, and very excited about being a part of making those decisions on what we're going to do in that classroom.
Thank you, Nicole. So we're going to transition here to the final question around crossroads. What crossroads do we face as educators? What crossroads do we face as a community as we think about embracing a gift mindset in our practices? Again, we're working from the assumption that in order to be empowered, in order to really leave school, regardless of what age you may be, and feel confident and courageous to enter into the world, that you have to embrace your gifts. And while your gifts may be evolving and your gifts may be emerging in different ways through your life experiences, we feel strongly that that is our purpose as a district, providing experiences that allow those gifts to come to life, that then allow you to be, we say empowered because we're Nelson County Schools. It's obviously a play on words, empowered as you enter into the world. So the question is, what crossroads might we face as educators, as a community of educators, in embracing a gift mindset?
Speaking from an elementary side of the, crossroads, the problem that I see the most is reaching out to community members through the elementary side. I know that we have the backpack leaders that go with the students, and that's great, but only a certain amount of students are able to see the different community partners. It would be really cool to have more community partners come into the schools, and that's something probably we could do is on our own, is invite those community partners into the school, because lack of transportation and whatnot. But just opening up that horizon for the students to see that there's more than just the school that they're actually in every day. Because I've had a community member come in before who was an eye doctor that taught an eye lesson in science, and they thought that was the coolest thing. And not only are we helping that community member with customers, but they're also seeing what people around us do every single day. So I think that's the problem that I face the most, is just having our students see what is out there.
So Shay, I hear you saying really changing the conversation is not only about our schools, but changing the conversation with our community, understanding that we can't do it alone, and it has to be a community-wide conversation.
Well, for me, I think another big issue would be just feeling the time constraints, because there's so much that you want to accomplish and get done. But I will say with the PBL process, our backpack leader and our administration were great at being flexible and providing us that time that we needed. When, even though my interference scheduling, because, my students were serving cocoa to the entire school, and, going into every classroom. So, scheduling times for that, with all of us collaborating together, worked out really well, and enabled us to do that, even though at times, the time constraints just feel a little bit overwhelming. But something I also discovered, like Shay was talking about the community partners, we took 2 field trips, to learn more about marketing and branding. And we went to Fresh Coffee in Bardstown, and we also went to Kroger. And I was just amazed at, how welcoming they were. They loved having the students come in. Kroger supplied little goodie bags for the students, and gave them different brands of cocoa to go home and try. It really amazed me how welcoming they were, and they were so excited, to join in with us and help in any way they could. Fresh Coffee, they even donated some cocoa mix that they used, and of course, talked to the students about where their cocoa came from and where they ordered it and why. So I like what Shay's saying as far as, it would be great to also have more of those types of business people come into the schools as well, and maybe get a little more in depth in that learning process and helping the kids, facilitate and grow their own curiosities.
I love how you brought up curiosity, because I think there was a shout out for FFA about keeping kids curious, and we've all studied the cognitive development theories and nature versus nurture. And I believe that, one said that nature is more important and we are just there to guide. So we are there to create this conducive environment for our students so that they can learn on their own. But I mean, we also have to step up and we have to keep them curious. We have to keep them involved. How do we teach them that it's okay to fail? We have to get them to be able to create and solve these problems, and problems aren't solved overnight. So, I mean, that's a huge obstacle because not one student is the same. And what is going to get this student excited and make them want to do more and stay curious and just keep going, especially in the world we're in today where, people want overnight results, and it's hard to fail. And we've learned that failing is not good, but you've got to fail to get somewhere so that you eventually get the right answer. So I feel that's a huge challenge is, teaching them that.
I think flexibility and creativity is always at our crossroads. For example, here at OKH, we are having a really neat flexible schedule next year with lots of different electives so that the kids can actually, kind of explore and discover their gifts. As backpack leader, bringing in 30 kids just with my class, our community partners are getting 150 kids. They're actually being flexible and they're changing their mindset to more of a yes mindset. And so, I think that's always our crossroads. How can we make it happen? What can we do? Where can we change so that we can grow and we can make those deep relationships within our community as well as within our schools?
Yeah, to build off of Anna's comment around time, I think the biggest challenge we face is not really what we're necessarily committing to. It's what are we willing to give up in order to make that commitment. And we tell ourselves so many stories about obligations and responsibilities, especially as we think about the era of accountability over the past 20 years in Kentucky and across the United States. And I think, this year, ironically, we didn't have state assessments. And I think that the conversation around that is something that we didn't get to go in and point at kids and say, oh, well, this kid might be a novice or this kid might be an apprentice, right? Imagine that. And you think about I can assure you of this, in my time in education, I found zero value in labeling a kid a novice or apprentice, right? And I think what we need to be able to say as they leave the school year is how many of our students can speak to their gifts and the possibilities that life allows them and affords them over the course of this summer. That's something that's worth assessing. Again, very romantic, but there it is.
I just kind of want to speak to the community partners being brought in first and the time constraints that we have. So at Foster Heights, we committed a whole day this past school year to bringing in community members to come in and show their passions. We sent out a survey to parents, and so the parents were our community leaders that came in, and then each kid got to take another survey based on what the parents were going to come in to share. And they got to choose two sessions to go to. And so it kind of showed them what other people's passions are. And then they got to explore, okay, well, maybe I'm passionate about this. Let me go see if I'm still interested in it after I see this session. So I just thought that it was really cool how we committed a day to it and how we were able to bring in those community partners that were still parents too.
Thank you, Abby. There's no question the parents are a huge resource that are right at the tips of our fingers. I think it's one question we have to think about is how do we know the gifts of our parents? How do we access and tap into that intelligence? How do we do that from the time a kid enters into our schools at the age of 3 and 4, 5, 6? How do we gather that intelligence and really know them? That's something that I think we have to pay more attention to as a community. So it looks like we only have a minute left. And I want to thank all of you for being a part of the conversation this morning. This is really building a foundation for the rest of the week. I'm going to present as we look towards the rest of the week. I'm just going to present my screen again to share some of the conversation that we want to continue to build upon and remind our viewers of. So today we've started this conversation around gifts and thinking about our crossroads. Post-brew, we encourage you to think about this with your teams. What ideas resonated for you or your team in Chapter 2 of Deep Learning and or within our conversation on the brew? What opportunities do we have to further embrace this within our practices? And what themes emerge from our conversation? So that is the transition as we think about the rest of our week. We want to continue to embrace this conversation around gifts, and we'll be using deep learning today and tomorrow, Chapter 2. We'll be looking at the power of place on Wednesday, and I believe we'll be coming back to deep learning on Thursday. So thank you guys for being a part of this conversation, and I will hand it over to Ms. Whitlow to transition us out here this morning.
All right. Well, we are so glad that you guys were with us this morning on the Community Brew Live. Tomorrow morning at 8, we will be doing yoga for Wellness Mornings with Victoria Stiles from Bloomfield Middle School. So we hope to see you back tomorrow at 8, and then for another panel and another conversation immediately following at 8:30. So you all make it an impossible day, and we will see you tomorrow.